Hi everyone, today I'm going to tell you a creepy story called The Limits of Loneliness. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos. Enjoy listening. Part 1. Limits of Loneliness. The April sun was setting. The days were getting longer, and the air temperature was slowly creeping up. I had already managed to put all the winter clothes deep in the closet, freeing up space for summer clothes in advance. Then it seemed to me that I only had to endure a little bit, and the long-awaited summer would come, which I would spend in the company of my loved ones. How wrong I was then, but first things first, it is worth saying that sometimes, on very rare occasions, I was pleased to stay at work a little longer. The setting sun illuminates a neat row of computers. The desks, where workers were chatting just recently, are empty. I don't know how else to convey the pleasant feeling of peace that comes over me at such moments. Even if it's not for long, you become the full master of your life. You can do whatever you want and how you want. No one will dare to say a word, and there's no one to say anything. One such evening I was returning home. Twilight had long since enveloped the city, and only the yellow light of the street lamps illuminated my way. At that moment, my phone vibrated loudly in my pocket. It was my friend and part-time colleague at work, Lyoka. "Hello, speak up. Are you still in the office? Come join us, I've brought the company together," my friend said, trying to shout over the music playing in the background. "Let's do it without me this time. My head is buzzing today." "Dude," Lyoka said more quietly, "let's come to you. I met someone here. In general, you'll be happy. Listen, let's get together next week, and I'll find myself a partner. Because I know your taste. You'll bring me some crocodile now, and I'll have to wriggle out all night. No, everything is fine here." My friend tried to convince me, but I was not eager to continue the conversation. Having dropped the call, I turned off the phone. Today was really hard, work took all my strength. The only thing I wanted at the moment was to take a shower and fall unconscious into a freshly made bed. The wail of a siren pulled me out of my thoughts. No, it's definitely not an ambulance or the police. But then what? Flashed through my mind. The next moment, a Kamaz, completely covered in metal, emerged from around the corner. Several sirens and flashing lights were installed on its roof, and some strange symbols resembling biohazard signs were painted on the body. Having flown past me at breakneck speed, the car disappeared around the corner. An interesting performance. I've never seen such cars before. I hope they're not coming for Leisha. A funny thought flashed through my head. I got home without incident. I took off my shoes and immediately went to the shower to wash away today. At such moments I have a persistent feeling that I do not belong to myself. 5 days a week I have to work for someone else to somehow make ends meet. Someday everything will change. Streams of warm water enveloped my body. I closed my eyes and plunged headlong into this pleasant pool. At that moment, something happened that I could not have expected at all. The bathtub began to vibrate. At first weakly, but with each passing second the vibration grew stronger. And when it became impossible to ignore, I raised my leg to take a step, and I was lying at the bottom of the bathtub. Blood was trickling from the wound on my head. Fuck, did I slip? How long have I been lying here? Shit, my head hurts. I hope I don't get a concussion. When I finally managed to get out of the bath, it was already deep night outside. Turning on my phone, I was surprised to find that there was no connection. Interesting, something serious must have happened, since there was no connection. Going out onto the balcony, I stared at the night city. There were no people in the street, only some windows had lights on. Okay, enough playing detective here, time to go to bed. I hope tomorrow it will become clear what kind of earthquake it was. Before falling asleep, I clearly heard distant sounds of machinery coming from the street. A picture immediately flashed in my head of how a strange Kamaz had passed me at high speed today. Maybe all these details are somehow connected? My sleep was restless, Several times during the night I woke up from the sounds coming from the street. My head was also making itself known. A couple of times during the night I had to get up and change the wet bandage. But surprisingly, there was no pain. Only sometimes did I feel unpleasant sensations at the place of the blow. And only by morning I finally managed to fall into a deep, healthy sleep. I woke up closer to evening. Yeah, that's not how I wanted to spend my day off. That's how I felt, that I should have gone to the club with Lyoka. Although, not all is lost yet. I need to call him, tell him to fly to me, at least we'll drink some beer. Taking the phone, I was surprised to find that the connection was still not back. There was no internet either. Strange, but what should I do now? For the next few minutes, I wandered aimlessly around the apartment, until my gaze accidentally fell on the street. To be honest, at that moment I was in a complete stupor, not understanding how to react to the picture that opened up. The thing is, my clean and decent street now looked as if a gang of marauders had been smashing it all night. The windows on the first floors were broken, the glass bus stop, which had been installed not long ago, was completely destroyed. Here and there, my gaze came across some personal belongings of people lying on the street. I don't understand anything. Everything was fine last night. What happened in just one day? A sticky, nasty fear began to slowly fill me, fettering every movement. What to do next? Where to run? Who to call? Although I can't even call anyone, there is no connection. But the most important question, to which I had no answer, still hung in the air. Where are the people? Where did everyone go? And indeed, despite the destruction that reigned around, there was absolute silence on the street. No people, no cars, not even the birds were singing. It seemed as if the world around had frozen. Only a cool wind from time to time drove the recently formed garbage along the street. Having no better idea, I got dressed and quietly went out into the entryway. Well, I probably should talk to the neighbors. Maybe they knew something about what was going on around me. But my plans were not destined to come true. None of the neighbors opened the door for me. I screamed at the top of my lungs that there was a fire, pounded on all the doors in a row, but there was no reaction. I'll tell you more, all the doors that were on the first floor were wide open. Damn, what happened here? Maybe everyone was evacuated somewhere while I was sleeping? Otherwise, how can you explain the fact that there wasn't a single living soul around me? I didn't know what to do next. I didn't want to wander around the city aimlessly. You never know who I might meet. But I couldn't sit at home either. After thinking for a bit, I decided to go to work. Besides, my office is in the very center of the city. I thought that if anyone was left in this damn place, they would be there. It was decided, I had to go. But how? I didn't have a car. Looking out into the yard, I saw that a white crossover belonging to my neighbor was parked not far from the house. The transport issue was resolved. I'll take his car for now. I think he won't be too offended. This neighbor lived on the first floor, so it wasn't difficult for me to get into his home. Despite the fact that I had visited Pasha, that was my neighbor's name, quite often, now I had a persistent feeling that I had broken into a stranger's apartment. All the furniture in the apartment had been destroyed. The interior doors were lying on the floor. Even the suspended ceiling had been cut in several places. We need to find other people immediately. There's something fishy going on here. The only thought that flashed through my head. Taking the car keys from the broken drawer, I quickly left the room. I admit honestly, although I went to driving courses, I still haven't learned to drive normally. On the other hand, what could be easier than driving through a completely empty city, especially when you're driving a car with an automatic transmission? But even despite this, I somehow miraculously managed to hit a few neighboring cars when leaving the yard. I hope Pasha won't be too angry with me for this, having left my neighborhood for the Central Avenue. I stopped on the side of the road. Strangely, everything looked as usual here. The houses were completely undamaged, there were no foreign objects lying around on the street. Everything looked fine, but this picture was missing one very important element: people. The radio in the car was also silent. I managed to catch some interference only on one wave. Okay, I need to go to work, I'll deal with this later. What a small city we have, it turns out, if you remove all the traffic jams and congestion from it. Yes, to my happiness, all the roads in the city were absolutely empty. Only at some intersections were there empty, running cars. It looked very strange, it seemed as if the person had simply disappeared from his car. I could not find another reasonable explanation. When I arrived at my office, it was already getting dark outside. The warm sun that had been warming me all day was giving way to the evening coolness. I got out of the car and quickly headed into the building. I don't know why, but I felt extremely uncomfortable in the open areas. In my soul, the feeling that someone was staring at me did not subside. All my hopes of finding at least one living person here were shattered. The office was empty. After wandering around the room for a while, I plopped down in my chair, exhausted. The silence that enveloped me from all sides was absolute. How did it happen that I was left completely alone? Maybe I fell into a coma because of hitting my head on the edge of the bathtub? Or even died? No way. This is hardly what hell looks like. Something terrible must have happened while I was out cold. Something that forced all the residents to evacuate the city in a matter of hours. No, that's also nonsense. Even from Chernobyl it took people 3 days to leave. But then what? While I was thinking, the sun finally disappeared behind the horizon. The sky was filled with dozens of shining stars. Night came into its rightful rights. The city was shrouded in darkness, not a single light was on in a single window. Only street lamps continued to illuminate the road. At that moment, a strange sound reached my ears. It sounded like a distant growl. Maybe it was some kind of technology? But the sound was repeated again, this time it was closer. Cold sweat appeared on my back. My body began to shake. The next howl was very close, somewhere on my street. On weak legs, I slowly hobbled to the window. What I saw the next second made me grip the windowsill tighter. Right under the street lamp, not far from the place where I abandoned my car, there was something standing. It looked like a huge wolf. Only the size of its paws and body could not be compared to any terrestrial animal. Some dark viscous liquid was dripping from its mouth. And it itself was somehow too black, it seemed that its body absorbed all the light around it. The creature slowly walked along the street, getting closer and closer to my building. The next moment it quickly ran off somewhere, and a few seconds later I heard a window on the first floor shatter into pieces. The bitch must have sensed it, was all I had time to think. I could hear the creature smashing the first floor. I froze in place, not understanding what to do next. Suddenly, a mechanical sound came from the next room, which almost instantly transformed into clear and distinct speech. Hey, can anyone hear me? Part 2. Limits of loneliness. Yes, I'm glad to hear from you too. Did you close the door behind you? A mechanical voice from the radio asked me. First of all, this creature just can't calm down. It keeps trying to get me. What's going on here anyway? I asked, perplexed. Listen, boy. The fact that you can hear me now is a great stroke of luck. I am ready to share with you all the information I have, but only after a personal meeting. The voice from the radio answered me. Okay, when will this happen? I asked. These creatures will disappear soon. In literally an hour they will be gone. Your task is simply to survive. As soon as you get out of your shelter, come to me immediately. Okay, dictate the address. Our further dialogue did not last long. Literally a few minutes later the stranger disconnected, having once again promised to tell me in person about everything that was happening here. The room where I managed to hide was a small security guard's room, which had nothing but a computer and a radio. The entrance to this room was blocked by a massive steel door. I wonder why they had to install such doors in our office. It's strange, but before all these events I didn't even know that we had security at all. Surprisingly, the computer was in working order. There must be an uninterruptible power supply somewhere. Although what difference does it make to me? It works and that's good. Especially since all the CCTV cameras in the building were connected to the computer. Miracle. I began to study my find closely. At this time, the creature behind the door was beside itself with rage. Unfortunately, it was not visible. Although the cameras had a night shooting function, the video quality left much to be desired. I could only discern a barely perceptible silhouette that flew into my door every few seconds. The performance didn't last long. At one point the creature stopped. A minute's pause was interrupted by its piercing scream. A moment later I heard the roar of another creature. Yes, bitch, now there were two of them. My chances of surviving until the morning were sharply reduced. Before I could come to my senses, the second unknown creature appeared in the camera lens. My door, which was now the only obstacle for the monsters, was hit with a monstrous blow. It seemed that the room in which I was hiding had somehow become alive. The walls began to vibrate continuously. The things that were lying on the table flew in different directions. The door was shaking from side to side. I admit honestly, at that moment I managed to say goodbye to life. What else could I do? I was sitting in a cramped room without windows. Creatures were pounding on the only door, who, if they wanted, could tear me apart in a matter of seconds. But a miracle saved me. When I thought that everything was finally lost, the pounding on the door suddenly stopped. At first, I didn't understand what had happened. But when I looked at the cameras, I realized that there was nothing behind the door. I'll tell you more, there was no one else in the entire building except me. There was no point in sitting in the guard's room any longer, but I was also afraid to go out. Only when, after half an hour, a familiar voice came from the radio speakers, which convinced me that the creatures would not bother us anymore that night, I decided to go out. All the furniture and equipment on my floor was destroyed. I immediately noticed several deep dents in the wall. What kind of power do these creatures have? It's scary to think, but if a little more time had passed, literally a couple of minutes, these creatures would have simply knocked down the door I was hiding behind. It was scary to leave the building. What if the mysterious stranger was wrong? Maybe the creatures were just hiding? No, it doesn't look like it, otherwise why would they hesitate? They would have caught me long ago. Okay, enough wasting time, especially since there was a man waiting for me on the other side of town. Having reached the car, I immediately jumped into it, not forgetting to close the door behind me. In case of an attack, this would hardly save me, but psychologically I feel more confident this way. But there was nothing to be afraid of, there was not a soul around. Only the warm light of the street lamps dimly illuminated the street. The car moved off with a slight creak. The pleasant sound of the engine calmed my frayed nerves a little. I wonder if I'll be able to get away from these creatures if they chase me? I wouldn't want to find out. Where did he tell me to go? Yeah, Pushkin, 37. On a normal day, given the traffic jams, it would take me at least an hour to get to my destination. But now the situation is different. I think I'll fly to my destination in about 15 minutes. Suddenly I saw a bright flash in the sky. A moment later I felt a strong vibration, like in the bathtub. Then a strong blow followed. Fortunately I managed to almost completely stop. Although the shock wave was quite powerful, the windows in my car withstood it. What was that? A rocket? A meteorite? I should ask this stranger. Maybe he knows. But surprisingly, my radio refused to give any signs of life. Damn, with each passing hour I have more and more questions. I hope that in the near future I will be able to find out everything. The rest of the journey was uneventful. Throughout the entire journey, I had the feeling that someone was closely watching my every move. I wonder if someone really has been watching me all this time, or if I've just started to go crazy. Having driven up to a dark 5-story building, I stopped near the fourth entrance and honked 3 times. I don't know why, but this stranger really wanted me to do exactly that. After a minute of waiting, the entrance door opened. A gray-haired man looked out. After looking me over with a running glance, he waved his hand, inviting me to enter the building. Although I was glad to finally see a living person, this particular character did not inspire any confidence in me. But there was nothing to do. I had to find out what was going on here. "Hi, it took you a long time to get here," the stranger said to me, extending his hand for a handshake. I was in a hurry, trying to drive carefully, so as not to get into any trouble again. "By the way, what was that?" "I mean the explosion in the sky. Did you see it?" "Let's be informal. My name is Kirill." "I saw the explosion. Come in. I'll tell you everything now." When we finished our tea, I asked the question that interested me most. "What's going on? Where did everyone disappear to?" "My friend, where exactly everyone disappeared to, I don't know. But I can tell you what's going on here." "Spill it." "The thing is that this city has been exposed to the influence of a strange radiation that comes to us straight from," Kirill raised his index finger to the ceiling, "from space." You may ask me a logical question: how can I know all this? Unfortunately, this is not the first settlement that has fallen victim to this infection. I don't get it. How come you're not the first? Are you saying that something similar has already happened somewhere? It's happening. Right now, at this very second, this shit is happening in different parts of the planet. Kirill exhaled loudly. "Go on, I won't interrupt you anymore," I said guiltily after a short pause. "Let me tell you my story. A year ago, I lived in a village far from civilization. I don't know how it happened, but my wife and I decided at one point to leave the capital of our homeland and move away from the bustle of the city. About 300 people lived in our village. We bought a house on the outskirts for next to nothing, renovated it, and even started building a bathhouse. And life went on as usual. Everything was wonderful. My pregnant wife was in 7th heaven. And let's be honest, I was happy with everything too. But one day, when I was doing renovations, something happened that ruined my future life. The ground under my feet began to vibrate, and an incomprehensible hum filled the entire space around. As I remember now, I quit my job and ran into the house. But I was not destined to make it. One of the beams shifted with a dull creak and fell right on my long-suffering head. What happened next? Darkness. I woke up only at night. To my surprise, my head hurt, but not as much as I expected. Gathering all my will into a fist, I stood up and went into the house, which by that time was completely empty. That night I went around, perhaps, all the houses in the area. But in none of them did I manage to meet a single living person, and not a single dead one either. And then they came. Kirill hesitated a little. Well, those creatures that were knocking on your door just recently. At that time, I still thought it was all a hallucination. That night, I didn't die only because, to my good fortune, those creatures appeared right before sunrise. As it turned out, they are terribly afraid of daylight. Already during the day, when everything that had happened over the past few hours began to seem to me nothing less than a bad dream, I made an attempt to escape. That's when the fun began. My car. The technical condition of which I constantly monitored, for some reason flatly refused to start. I thought, okay, no big deal, I'll go on foot. But the road led me back again and again. Then I decided to escape through the forest. This venture also failed. Half an hour later, I unexpectedly came out in another part of the village. The sun was already setting, and I had no choice but to look for a place to spend the night. God, it was the worst night imaginable. Dog-like creatures kept pounding on my basement door. I just sat there and waited for it all to end. But how did you get out? The hope that my wife might have been evacuated while I was unconscious did not leave me. I spent a month in these conditions. I talked to myself all the time. And then one day I was so desperate that I could not think of anything better than to simply surrender myself to these creatures. To be honest, at that moment I completely lost touch with reality. Everything that was happening around me seemed like a bad dream that was about to end. Kirill was silent for a moment, catching his breath. And what did you do next? He came out in front of the house with a homemade torch. He was shouting all sorts of nonsense into the void. He was expecting these terrible creatures to appear from the darkness at any moment. But he appeared. A middle-aged man in a strict business suit seemed to materialize out of thin air. I was so surprised that I was speechless. He walked slowly towards me. The only thing he said to me was, "Commendable, young man, commendable." And what happened next? I asked, burning with interest. And then I woke up in a hospital. More precisely, in a mental hospital. For several months they injected me with some kind of drugs. Probably they wanted me to forget everything that happened to me in the village. But I didn't forget. The first thing I did after being discharged was go home to the village. Imagine my surprise when, as I was approaching it, I was stopped by strange people in protective suits with machine guns. When I asked them questions, they dryly replied that it was now a closed secret zone. According to them, there was no village there anymore. Words cannot describe what I felt at that moment. The bitterness of resentment and loss filled my soul. Kirill fell silent. What about your wife? To this day, she is listed as missing, as are hundreds of my neighbors. But that's not the end of the story. Just a couple of days ago, I received a text message on my phone. If you want all the answers, come. Then there were the coordinates of your city. At first, I thought it was another spam. But then for some reason an image of that creepy man I saw in the village appeared in my head. Anyway, I have nothing more to tell. I think that the object you saw in the sky not long ago is somehow connected with all that devilry that is going on around here. Maybe we should try to get out of town. You didn't listen to me. It's impossible to leave the city. Although, if you want, you can try. But it's a waste of time, take my word for it. And that mysterious text message didn't say what to do at all. No, just what I already told you. In short, my plan is this. Let's go to the crash site of this crap. And then we'll sort it out on the spot. If you want, come with me. In just a couple of days, Kirill managed to turn an ordinary basement into a real bunker. There was a massive grate hanging on the only window under the ceiling. The front door was made of some strong material. I even had time to envy it. After all, his door had only a few shallow dents. While the door I was hiding behind in the office had no living space left. Coming out of the basement, I felt a nasty chill. Had it really gotten that cold outside in the last few hours? Or was it my stress-weary body that had become more sensitive to the environment? Most likely the latter, because looking at Kirill's unbuttoned jacket, I realized that he wasn't feeling any cold. It was still sunny and deserted outside. We got into the car, which I now rightfully consider mine, and headed in the direction from which the tallest column of smoke was coming. We drove in silence. The empty avenues and streets filled me with anxiety and fear. Kirill was also constantly glancing sideways. I don't know what he wanted to see there, but his actions made me feel uneasy. Or maybe he's crazy? No, it doesn't look like it. Although Kirill is behaving very strangely, he looks suspicious, but he's definitely not sick. There's clearly meaning in his words. Moreover, the realization that I was not alone in this city made me feel a little better. Where are you always looking sideways? I asked, unable to contain myself. You see, sometimes it seems to me that I see these creatures even during the day. Their images flicker in the dark window holes every now and then, Kirill said quietly. But you said that they can't be here during the day. That's a fact. But I'm not sure that this catastrophe is identical to the one that happened to me in the village. Maybe there are some other creatures here. After all, the city is not small. The area of the swallowed territory is several times larger than last time. By the way, I want to ask, besides these wolves, have you seen any other creatures? Saw? More like heard. It's a very strange feeling. I don't even know how to describe it. Just imagine, you're standing in the middle of an empty street, like this one, for example. Kirill waved his hand out the window, and then, for no apparent reason, you start hearing people talking. Then the sound of cars appears. Then birdsong appears. Do you understand what I mean? If you close your eyes at such a moment, it seems that everything has returned to normal. But it's not so. Everything around you is still empty. Believe me, when you've been alone for a long time and then suddenly start hearing people's voices, it becomes truly creepy. It's even scarier than wolves. And how long has this been going on? I asked with interest. Not for long. A couple of minutes at most. But believe me, these few minutes will seem endless to you. Kirill exhaled heavily. Listen, during your entire stay in the lonely village, have you ever had any theories about where these creatures came from? And most importantly, where did all the people disappear to? There is one strange theory. As I already said, my wife and I bought a house that was located in a rather remote place. Although I did not have time to really make friends with the locals, I still managed to find out something about that place. Back in the Soviet years, a couple of kilometers from the village, there was a scientific base. As I understood from the stories of the locals, they did not do anything serious there. They simply existed on budget money. But one ill-fated day, they received a strange assignment to study a celestial body that landed somewhere in our area. In short, as the local tales say, this object was soon lost, and the scientific station was disbanded. And you believe in this? No. Not really. They were disbanded for a different reason. Funding simply stopped in the 90s. And no one can know what they were actually studying there. Turning around the next corner, we saw a huge hole in the road. Kirill made a gesture with his hand, and I slowed down to a minimum. It? I asked. Yes. Come closer. Now we'll find out what gift fate has given us this time. I stopped a few meters from the mysterious crater. Kirill carefully got out of the car and slowly walked towards the hole in the asphalt. I also got out of the car, but I was afraid to approach the mysterious object, so I decided to watch from the side for now. Oh, something is glowing, Kirill said in surprise, leaning over. Wait, don't touch. But I didn't have time to finish. My new acquaintance knelt down on one knee and was about to pick up the unknown object. But suddenly there was a deafening explosion. Despite the fact that I was standing at a relative distance from the epicenter of the explosion, I was thrown back several meters. Almost immediately I managed to catch a strange sweetish smell, which became more distinct with each passing second. I tried to get up, but my legs refused to obey this command. Turning over on my side, I realized that my eyes were involuntarily closing. What happened? Where is Kirill? What is this strange smell? These were my last thoughts before my consciousness was finally swallowed by impenetrable darkness. Part 3. Limits of Loneliness. The sunlight was streaming through my window. Opening my eyes with difficulty, I was surprised to find myself in my apartment. Oh my, I moaned in surprise. My head was splitting with pain. Slowly raising myself, I was able to sit up, leaning my back against the wall. My room looked the same as before. It seemed that the events that had happened to me over the past 24 hours were just a stupid dream. But it couldn't be a dream. Everything looked too natural. Slowly getting out of bed, I hobbled to the window on weak legs. Outside, everything was as before. People were wandering from side to side, cars were rushing somewhere on their business. The most ordinary day one can imagine. I admit honestly, I did not feel any joy from what I saw. my headache overshadowed all emotions. Maybe it was time to call an ambulance. Because a headache coupled with hallucinations does not bring any bright prospects. No, wait, I need to figure everything out first. At that moment, I couldn't think of anything better to do than call my colleague at work. Taking the phone in my hands, I dialed my friend's number. Hello, Lyoka? I asked questioningly when the phone beep suddenly turned to silence. What do you want? The comrade muttered discontentedly. Can you come? Preferably right now. Have you seen the time? Where am I going so early? Or are you taking revenge on me for yesterday? Well, I'm sorry, you didn't want to go with us. Any other questions? Yes, no. I said uncertainly. So, don't bother me until Monday, that's it, I'm getting better. The next second, long beeps were heard from the phone speakers. It's interesting, if Lyoka was at the club yesterday, then today is only Saturday. Okay, I don't want to rack my brains over this yet. I'll take a shower, and then I'll decide for sure whether it's worth going to the doctor today or not. I spent the whole day doing housework. Fortunately, after a good hot shower and sweet tea, my long-suffering head began to gradually return to normal. But despite this, every minute I thought about only one thing. Was all this really just a product of my imagination? In search of an answer to my questions, I even went online. But I couldn't find anything useful there. I only dug up some scary stories on this topic, but they weren't even close to what I had experienced. I was lost in my thoughts and didn't even notice how the sun had set. There were noticeably fewer people on the street. Yes, I had been going to the window all day and observing the situation. The warm light of the street lamps illuminated the parking lot next to the house, which was completely filled with cars. The picture was banal to the point of horror. There was nothing to find fault with. What kind of monsters can we even talk about when ordinary everyday life is boiling outside the window? Having decided to finish my homework for the day, I poured myself some tea and was about to settle down on the couch when suddenly there was a heavy knock on my door. It was as if I was struck by electricity. Who could it be? I stood in a stupor in the center of the room with a cup of hot tea, and knocks continued to be heard at my front door. Overcoming myself, I slowly crept up to the door and looked through the peephole. Words cannot describe the relief I felt when I saw Lyoka standing behind the door. Hi, I'm sorry if I offended you this morning. But you're also a real guy. You decided to call at 9 in the morning. You know that after the club I come in quickly. We'll discuss everything, I said, letting my friend inside. I didn't come to you empty-handed. Lyoka picked up the package, from which the rattling of glass was heard. Well, tell me, how was your trip yesterday? I asked casually. The hunt failed, and completely. Those two courtesans put something in my cocktail. They stole my wallet. Anyway, it's good that we didn't go to you yesterday, otherwise we'd be lying tied up somewhere in the corner of the room. Or worse, did you notice anything strange yesterday? I asked carefully. Strange? In what sense? Said my friend, opening another bottle of beer. Well, I don't even know how to explain. Oh, well, we went to the casino yesterday. There was some guy sitting in the VIP area yelling that supposedly in this casino the cards in the sealed deck are laid out in a different order. I even took a video. Should I show you? No, that's not what I mean. In short, some kind of crap happened to me. I think I was hallucinating. Wow, did you eat something? No, of course not. I condemn such a topic. I just fell in the bathroom yesterday and hit my head hard. So I must have imagined it at night. What did you see? The comrade asked with interest. It's even funny to remember. I saw that there was no one left in our city. All the people had disappeared somewhere. And some creatures would appear at night. They looked like wolves, but only very large. Yeah, and what were you doing there? Well, by a lucky coincidence I was able to find one living person. Although he behaved strangely, it was still better than complete loneliness. Then we went somewhere with him. And then everything was like a fog. Silence fell in the room. Laoka thought about my words for a while, and then said, "I think you should see a doctor. Maybe you got a concussion? It doesn't look like a concussion, but yes, it's worth seeing a specialist." At that moment the front doorbell rang. Someone in the entryway pressed the doorbell button and wouldn't let go. "Aren't these your friends?" I asked, shouting over the annoying melody. Laoka shook his head. I approached the door and looked through the peephole. But to my surprise, there was no one there. The nasty sound of the bell also died down. I don't know, maybe it was my friend's presence nearby that had such an effect on me, but at that moment I didn't feel any fear. On the contrary, I wanted to punish the jokers who were doing all sorts of crap at such a late hour as soon as possible. Opening the door, I saw that right in the center of the rug there was a white sealed envelope. Taking the mysterious letter in my hands, I tore off its top part with one movement and took out an ordinary notebook sheet in a box, folded in several layers. What I saw next shocked me. Cold sweat immediately appeared on my back. My hands began to shake violently. I was brought out of my stupor by Laoka's displeased voice, which came from the room. "Well, what's going on? How much longer?" Having quickly locked the door behind me, I rushed to the balcony. A hope appeared in my soul that I would be able to see the person who left me a letter with such content. All this time, Laoka looked at me with surprised eyes, apparently believing that I needed to see a doctor immediately. The night street was practically deserted. A few people were walking their dogs. Someone was smoking at the bus stop. Wait. What's this? My gaze fell on a man who had settled down right under the street lamp. His huge white pupilless eyes were looking straight at me. His disproportionately large mouth was open in a nasty smile. It seemed that the dog owners passing by did not notice him. Only their pets, with their tails between their legs, tried to move away from the horrible creature as quickly as possible. Our battle of glances didn't last long. I was distracted by Laoka, who followed me onto the balcony. When I looked out again, he was gone. "Damn, bro, let me go to the hospital with you. I didn't know you were that bad," my friend said thoughtfully. "Look here." I handed him a crumpled piece of paper from my notebook. Laoka looked at him in bewilderment. After a while, he said, "Some numbers? And a drawing. What is this drawing? Tell me. Say it out loud. Tell me, otherwise I'll think I've gone crazy." "Well, it looks more like a blot, of course. But it reminds me of a dog, only a big one." At that moment Laoka raised his surprised eyes to me. Apparently it dawned on him what was going on here. "That means I haven't gone crazy yet," I said, exhaling loudly. "But how is this possible? Is this the same creature from your dream?" asked Laoka, picking up the piece of paper. But I didn't answer him. I only had enough strength to go back into the room and sit down in the chair. So, everything that happened to me just recently was real? But why did I come back then? And what was that creature standing under my window? Unable to bear it any longer, I took a bottle of beer and drank it down in one gulp. "Listen, I entered these numbers into my phone, in short, here," Laoka told me after I put the empty bottle of beer on the table. A map was open on his smartphone screen, with some area highlighted in yellow. "What is this?" I asked. "It shows the village. It's a 5-hour drive from us." "But what does it all mean?" Laoka said thoughtfully. And then it finally dawned on me. I grabbed my friend's phone and began to study the area closely. The village was in a fairly remote area. Everything was as Kirill had told me. Listen, I had a man in my charge who told me that he came to our city from a remote village. He also said that there was some laboratory near his village where something terrible happened. Something that later crossed out the lives of millions of people. As you can see, no catastrophe has happened yet. Which means that perhaps I have a chance to change everything. It is unknown how much time we have left before something swallows up all living things in the city. So we need to hurry. I'm going there tomorrow. A heavy silence hung in the room. Lyoka studied me intently with his eyes. Taking another sip from his bottle, he finally said, "Let's be honest. I can't quite believe what you're telling me here. And it really worries me that you believe everything that's happening. But that damn letter. Anyway, let's do it this way. Tomorrow I'll take us to that village in my car. But if it turns out that there's no lab, no acquaintance, and no monsters in sight, I'll take you to the hospital right away." "Deal, sounds fair," I shrugged. "Then we'll put the remaining beer in the fridge and go to bed. We've got a tough day ahead of us tomorrow." "And this," Lyoka hesitated a bit, "pack a backpack with essentials. You never know, maybe your theory won't work out." Our get-together ended as suddenly as it had begun. Having made the bed and taken a hot shower, I lay down on the bed, having first packed my backpack, as Lyoka had said. In principle, I was ready to go to the hospital. I will say more, it will be a great relief for me if it turns out that all this is the ravings of a madman. On the other hand, how then to explain the mysterious letter? And that vile man whom I saw from the balcony did not want to get out of my head. Thoughts of this kind swirled in my head for several more hours, until my exhausted body finally fell into the cozy kingdom of Morpheus. Part 4. Limits of Solitude. Finale. Wait, so this Kirill told you that his village was destroyed a year ago. Did I understand correctly? Why should we go there then? What will it change? Lyoka asked me perplexedly, getting into his car. Well, we'll go and check what's really going on there now. If everything's good there, then you'll take me to a sanatorium for treatment. If not, then you'll help prevent a global catastrophe, which, let me remind you, destroyed you too, I said, fastening my seat belt. It wasn't even 7 in the morning, but Lyoka and I were already on our way. We only managed to sleep for a few hours, but I had no desire to lie around. I understood the danger that threatened all of humanity. The realization of this fact charged me with energy and strength better than any sleep. On Sunday morning, the road, as well as the sidewalk, was absolutely empty. At some point, I even had a feeling of déjà vu. I had seen exactly the same empty streets just recently. It seemed that a huge four-legged creature was about to crawl out from around the next turn, but everything was calm. Despite the fact that dawn was coming into its own with every passing minute, the street lamps on the side of the road continued to illuminate the entire space around with their warm light. This morning atmosphere had a special effect on my agitated body. Having decided to take a break from contemplating the views outside the window, I turned to my friend, Lyoka. Aren't you too lazy to go there? Be honest. You work 5 days a week. 2 days a week, and you decided to devote one of your days off entirely to me, I said, breaking the silence that reigned in the car. Laziness, of course, but on the other hand, what else am I supposed to do? Sit at the computer all day? Clean? Cook? No, that's not interesting. But going with my crazy colleague somewhere out of town sounds quite intriguing. Especially since I've never been to that area. By the way, me too. I can't wait to meet Kirill. He should remember me 100%. We survived together. Even if not for long. Listen, remind me, why didn't he disappear like everyone else? Why were you the only ones left with him? Lyoka asked with interest, simultaneously driving out of the city onto the highway. What I don't know. When it all happened, I was passed out in the bathtub. He was probably unconscious too. In short, I don't know. He had been surviving in his village for a long time before that. Maybe that's where he gained experience. Cool. And how, I wonder, did he know that in our city, at this very time, the same devilry would arise as in his village? Here I thought hard. Indeed, how could he know where exactly the next catastrophe would happen? For some reason, this obvious thought had not crossed my mind until now. Yes, Kirill had survived in his village for a month, so what? I could have hidden in his basement for a month. But that would not have made me well versed in matters concerning the disappearance of people without a trace. Something was fishy here. It was not for nothing that I did not like this Kirill from the start. And Lyulka is a good guy, he gets to the heart of the matter. I am even glad that he was the one who joined me on this expedition. We're going to have an interesting conversation with this Kirill. I have a gut feeling that he's hiding something, I said out loud, and you're still asking me why I didn't stay home. How could I miss something like that? Lyulka asked me with a smile on his face. The scarlet sunrise had long since dissipated. The sun illuminated the entire space around with its pleasant light. We rushed past orderly rows of trees. Very soon green leaves would appear on the bare branches. I hope we will be able to catch this moment. Looking around, I suddenly realized that I was terribly sleepy. The sleepless night was making itself known. In addition, I began to experience an unpleasant headache, which was growing with each passing minute. Dude, I'll sleep for now, it's still 3 hours away anyway. Do you mind? Against? Sit and endure. Lyulka looked at me and smiled. Okay, sleep while you still have the chance. Wake me up when we get there, okay? I asked, tilting the seat back. Fine. The smooth noise of the engine and the calm music from the radio did their job. In just a moment I fell asleep. Hey, wake up! I heard my comrade's distant voice. I opened my eyes with difficulty and saw that we were standing near some roadside cafe. Have we arrived already? I said, puzzled. No, I just want to go buy some food. By the way, they have a toilet here. Do you need it? No, better give me a cigarette. I'll wait for you near the car. You've never smoked. What's gotten into you? Lyulka looked at me in surprise. I'm starting to get really worried. Who knows what awaits us in this village? Maybe this is a trap that the creatures are trying to drive me into. And I'm dragging you along with me. Oh, said my friend, it seems we shouldn't have been drinking yesterday. When did you manage to get the blues? Did you have a bad dream or something? Where did such thoughts come from? No, I didn't dream anything. I just feel a strong sense of anxiety. As if I need to run away from this place. And the further the better. Anyway, wait for me near the car. I'll give you a cigarette, all right. When I get back, we'll discuss your concerns. Okay, I said, getting out of the car. Despite the sunny weather, it was very cold outside. An icy wind hit my face. Yes, it will be warmer in our city. But the cold was not the main problem now. At the moment, I was experiencing some incomprehensible emotions, similar to anxiety. But no, it was not anxiety, but rather trepidation. I really wanted to sort out this whole situation as soon as possible. At that moment, my wandering gaze fell upon a car parked in the lot. The yellow UAZ was a few dozen meters away from me. There were a lot of flashing lights attached to its roof, and a very strange symbol was emblazoned on its sides. Where could I have seen it? Then it finally dawned on me. Holy shit, those same signs were on that very Kamaz that I saw that fateful evening. It even had similar flashing lights. Does that mean we're on the right track? The events that followed happened so quickly that my exhausted consciousness did not have time to react to the situation that had arisen. A man came out of a roadside cafe and walked quickly towards the UAZ. Due to the stupor that had overtaken me, I did not notice how I dropped my lit cigarette, which a second later was carried away by a strong gust of wind. Kirill? I said out loud, but he didn't hear me. Having jumped into the car, my ill-fated acquaintance set off in a moment. Words cannot describe what was going on in my head at that moment. Thoughts were racing through my head one after another at breakneck speed. It seemed that at that very moment, right next to the roadside cafe, it finally began to dawn on me what was happening. Hey dude, let's go. Lyulka's voice was heard behind me. Let's go, I said, jumping into the car. Why are you so charged up? Did something happen? My comrade looked at me suspiciously. Do you see that UAZ? Let's go after it. Faster, before it gets away from us. What's going on here? I'm starting to get angry. Can you tell me in Russian what happened? Lyoka asked me, starting to move. Kirill is riding in that UAZ. The same one I saw in my vision. We need to catch up with him and interrogate him. That bastard probably works in the lab. What if he doesn't remember you? How will that look? 2 people stopped a special transport by force right on the highway. No, we might get into trouble for that later. Let's just follow him for now. The main thing is that you are absolutely sure that he is the one driving, and not someone else. It was him, 100%. There can be no doubt. You see, in my vision, Kirill mentioned the lab, but he didn't say anything about working there. We drove on in silence. The mysterious UAZ didn't try to break away from us. And there was nowhere to go. The highway didn't turn anywhere, so all we could do was drive straight and make sure that my friend's car didn't mysteriously disappear around the bend. I have to give credit to my colleague at work, he didn't abandon me at such a crucial moment. Although, what kind of colleague is he to me after that? A real friend. He's messing around with me here, ruining the suspension on our roads, and all for the sake of helping me figure out the situation. When we get back, I'll have to give him something. A friend after all. Lyoka's disgruntled grumbling pulled me out of my thoughts. I looked up at the road and saw a policeman standing at its edge, waving his baton at us, calling for us to stop on the side of the road. Let's let it go now. Lyoka hit the steering wheel with his hand in annoyance. Now he'll just check the documents and let you go. The road doesn't turn anywhere. I think we'll catch up, I said. Before approaching the driver, the policeman walked around the car several times, carefully examining it from all sides. Hello, aren't you locals? The plump policeman asked Lyoka. No, we're not locals. Did we do something wrong? My friend asked aggressively. This road leads to a specially protected facility. If you don't have a pass, then turn around and leave here. At that moment, his colleague approached the policeman, holding a machine gun in his hands. But we have to go there, I said, unable to bear it. The policeman looked at me angrily. Guys, turn around. We won't let you go any further. You can take the bypass road. It goes through the village you recently passed. Is there an option to turn around here? Lyoka asked with anger in his voice. Turn around. Have a nice trip, said the policeman, walking away from the car. Having crossed the double solid line, we moved in the opposite direction. At this time, Lyoka's face was covered in red spots. The pulsating veins appeared on his temples. It was urgent to somehow defuse the situation, and I could not think of anything better than to say, okay, no big deal. I think we'll meet again. Besides, the coordinates you entered into your phone yesterday pointed to this village. We'll wait for him there. So don't be angry, I said. I don't know what came over me now. Just some kind of fit of rage. I need to calm down a bit. You're probably tired too. A rest wouldn't hurt us now. I've never noticed this before. No, there's definitely something fishy here. First you fell into a depressed state, then it hit me. I think there's a reason for all this. The navigator says we've arrived. Stop somewhere, I said. The village we arrived at was so small that it didn't even have its own name. According to the map, the entire settlement consisted of only 20 houses. Everything was as Kirill described, a remote village far from civilization. At least the net catches something. That's good, said Lyoka. Yes, that's good. Listen, we still have a ton of time. Don't you want to take a walk around the village? Where can I go? It's only one street. No, I'll pass. I'd rather wait for you in the car. Besides, it's cold outside, and I don't want to leave the car unattended. Anyway, go alone, Lyoka said, smiling. There really was nowhere to walk here. Literally 300 meters away the dirt road ended and a dense forest began. I wonder what bypass road that policeman was talking about. And what should I do next? Get back to the car? No way, I'm tired of sitting around doing nothing. There are still a few hours left until evening. I need to ask the locals. You never know, maybe they noticed some odd behavior on Kirill's part. With these thoughts, I headed towards the first hut I came across. The leaning one-story building looked as if it was about to collapse. Around the house there was a wooden fence, which was collapsed in some places. A sad picture, in a word. When I was almost right up to the house, an old man wrapped in an old sheepskin coat came out onto the porch. He was quite tall, which surprised me a little. I stopped abruptly. For some reason at that very moment everything I wanted to ask flew out of my head. Why are you silent? The grandfather asked, breaking the awkward pause. Yes, that is, hello, where did you come from? My grandfather said, looking me over. Yes, I came to see Kirill. To visit? There's a guy living here, do you know him? Who doesn't know him? I remember him like this. The grandfather lowered his hand to the level of his knee. And he told me that he had just recently moved to the village. With each passing hour I have more and more questions. The thought flashed through my head. Why are we hanging around here like idiots? Traveler, come into the house. I won't refuse you anything. Yes, it's somehow inconvenient. Don't shirk, Grandpa will tell you a lot of stories. Come in. Damn, maybe I should call Lyoka? No, let him guard the car. I won't be staying long anyway. I thought, entering the house. Sit down here, I'll pour you some tea, said the grandfather, pointing to a stool. Thank you very much, otherwise I would freeze standing outside. Kirill's friends are my friends. By the way, why did you come to see him? I just wanted to visit a friend. I haven't heard that Kryuka has friends in the city. His wife introduced us. I've known her since school. Wife? Oh, how interesting, said the old man, pouring tea. I haven't talked to Kirill for a long time. Tell me, what's new with him? Here, grandson, is your tea, drink it. How is Kryuka doing? Everything is the same as before, but what exactly are you interested in? Maybe he's telling me something about work. I said, sipping hot tea. No, he doesn't tell me anything about work. He just gets really tired. But what can you do? That's life. At that moment I felt dizzy. Oh, I don't feel well, I said, trying to get up. So my tincture works. For your information, traveler, Kirill has no wife at all. With each passing second my consciousness was fading more and more. I made a final attempt to rise from the stool, but almost immediately lost my balance and fell. The last thing I saw was the sarcastic smile of my grandfather, who was standing above me with some kind of rope. Hey, moron, wake up! I opened my eyes with difficulty. The space around me had not yet returned to normal. Do you recognize him? A familiar voice asked me. Kirill? I asked, trying to focus my vision. Yes, sir. Listen, I didn't think you'd be so persistent. What's going on here? Where am I? I asked, trying to get up. And you still haven't figured it out? Dude, you're in trouble. Big time. Who even advised you to come here? Although, that's not so important. The main thing is that today is the day that we've all been waiting for. You and this old man will go to court, idiots. Let me go right now, we are our settlement. Today, an ancient ritual will take place in our village. We will sacrifice you. I get it, you are sectarians. No. Humanity has been replaced by a new, more advanced form of life. Quite recently, a meteorite fell in our area. It soon became clear that it was not just another celestial body. There was an embryo in its center. In the lab, we found out that in order for it to come out, it was necessary to soak it in a liquid that was very similar in consistency to blood. Oh, how? But the scientists began to hesitate. They did not want to release this creation of the universe. So today I stole this meteorite from the laboratory. Well then, water him with your blood. Why do you need me? It's not that simple. Kirill smiled broadly. The thing is that regular blood won't do. Before starting the ritual, a person must consume this solution. Kirill took some kind of vial out of his pocket. So use it yourself. I have this solution in a single copy. Besides, the lethality from its use is 100%. So, excuse me, he smiled once again. Idiot, you know that you are condemning thousands of people to death. And all for what? So that incomprehensible creatures that look like wolves can walk around our cities. Only the chosen ones will remain. They're just using you. Listen, don't make that mistake. It's too late. Everything is ready for the ritual. Nothing can be changed. Madhvi, come down. And don't forget the syringe. Kirill shouted. A moment later the cellar lid swung open and my grandfather's face appeared in the opening, giving me tea. I tried to break free, but realized that my limbs were tightly bound. Listen, Grandpa, listen, don't do this. But no one else paid attention to me, having drawn the dark liquid into a syringe. The grandfather gave me an injection in the shoulder with a precise movement. Well, that's all. We'll start soon, gather the people, Kirill said, going up the stairs. The cellar lid slammed shut and I was left completely alone. The intense cold I had been experiencing before began to give way to heat. My body temperature began to rise rapidly. Multicolored circles appeared before my eyes. What a stupid death! The moment we have been waiting for so long has come. Today, the world you all know will disappear. More perfect, more adapted beings will come. And all of us will be among those who will be able to enjoy the gifts of the new civilization. You are all the chosen ones. YSSSS, a cry was heard from several dozen people. I opened my eyes with difficulty. The space around me was blurry. The figures were indistinct. The only thing I could make out were a few glowing lights fluttering very close. Nausea set in almost immediately, and I decided to close my eyes to get rid of the nasty feeling. Damn Kirill and his tincture, what have they done to me? This young man is here for a reason. In his veins flows the blood with which ancient creatures will be able to come into the world. Madhvi, begin. The next moment I felt something cold and sharp slide across my wrist. I felt the life draining out of me. Was this the end? Behold him. He has come to cleanse this world. The drumbeat reached my ears. My body was covered in sweat. My wrist was in terrible pain. I never thought that this is how I would spend my last moments. With all these thoughts in my head, I didn't even notice how the drumbeat died down. A tense silence reigned around me. Why is nothing happening? Someone's worried voice was heard. Apparently, there is not enough blood. Madhvi, you know what to do. With my last strength, I raised my eyelids. An old man with a bloody knife was flying towards me at full speed. A terrible grimace was on his face. Then something happened that I could not have expected at all. A series of shots were heard, the old man fell, not reaching me a couple of meters. Everyone lie down. It's the police. Unable to resist the waves of heat rolling over me any longer, I closed my eyes. With each passing second, the screams and gunshots surrounding me grew further away. With another wave of heat, everything around me became silent. I finally sank into a serene silence. You spent more than a month in the hospital. We didn't want to disturb you all that time. After all, you almost went to the other world. It's lucky that the poison they injected you with was diluted. Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here now, said the investigator, pouring himself some coffee. I think I told everything as it was. About the vision, and about the mysterious letter, and about the monsters. In any other situation, you would have been locked up in a mental hospital for such statements. Take my word for it. The investigator glanced at me. But now the situation is different. You see, the object that Kirill stole from the closed laboratory really does pose a threat to humanity. If he had managed to complete his ritual, we would have had to face great difficulties. They never told me what happened that night. Why didn't the ritual work? And why did I spend over a month in a solitary confinement room? Why didn't the ritual work? The investigator asked, smiling. Thank Lyoka. Right before the ritual began, he replaced the meteorite with an ordinary stone. It's amazing that no one found it. And as for your solitary confinement, these were the usual precautions. Nothing more. Kirill injected you with a strange substance, which is essentially poison. Any other questions? Yes, what happened to Kirill? He's in a pretrial detention center. In a solitary confinement cell. He'll be released in about 20 years at best. It's clear. Silence reigned in the office. The investigator paced from corner to corner several more times. By the way, the investigator said, clutching his head. You and Lyoka will soon be awarded medals from our governor. After all, you prevented a catastrophe. You'll also get letters of thanks from the laboratory. What will happen to the meteorite? Will it be destroyed? I asked. Classified information. I don't know myself. But I don't think so. It's unclear what consequences this procedure will have for us. They'll probably be watching the object for now. There are no more questions. Can I go? I asked, standing up. Yes, go. Just this, said the investigator, lowering his voice. If you find anything else strange, let us know right away. And the doctors want to see you in a month. You've really interested them. I'll tell you a secret. They've come up with the theory that you're somehow connected to this meteorite. So don't get lost. Wow, that's some information. Can you give more details? In a month everything will be explained to you. Now go! Outside, spring was in full swing. The trees were covered with green leaves. Warm sunbeams touched my pale skin. This whole picture pleased my soul, because for the first time in the past month I went outside on my own. The keys jingled loudly in my pocket, but I was in no hurry to get to my house. The thing is, just a few days ago I saw something strange. The same creature I had seen on the balcony a month ago was looking out the window of my room. Its eyes were still empty, and its lips were spread across its face in a terrible grimace. It lasted only a few seconds, but it was enough to plunge me into the abyss of horror again. I walked home slowly. I really hope that when I get to my floor, I won't find a white envelope in front of the door with another note inside. I hope everything will be fine. I hope that it was just a glitch. Right. The end. Thanks for watching.